My wife finally left. She's gone. I have time to be alone with my babies. I'm gonna go dig them up. They're buried somewhere safe where no one can ever find them. Somewhere deep in the woods. The spot. There they are, just where I left them. Home we go. Ah, my babies. Everybody has their own methods for dealing with the pressures of adulthood. You got careers to build and maintain, families to raise, provide for, homes to pay for. It's a cold world, and sometimes you just need to off someplace warm. The desert is warm, Florida's warm, but I prefer to shake off the cold using the warmth of nostalgia. And nothing in my memory is warmer than that Christmas day in 1998. I was 7 years old, I had no pressures, my parents still loved me, and the video games under the tree were simple. And I rocked this one. Caught all 150 Pokemon, beat all the gyms, beat the Elite Four, and I did it all with my original Pikachu as one of my 6 Pokemon in my roster. There were a lot better Pokemon back then. Pikachu really wasn't that great. But when you're as young and socially awkward as I was, you tend to build attachments to non-living things, which sounds adorably pathetic as I say it out loud. Every time I turn this thing on and load my game up, it's like going back in time. All the outside pressures disappear, and all my old friends are still there. So let's boot it up and check on how my Pikachu's doing. He's probably pretty pissed. Wait. Where's my game? I saved it. No! No! Sunrise, sunset, folks. Even Pokemon don't live forever. If you know anything about BB RAM memory, it needs a battery to maintain it, and these little CMOS batteries, well, they last about 10 years, and that's probably, well, that's a lot less than I've saved it, so that's all my fault. Pour one out for the homies. Rest in peace, Pikachu. If there are any other sentimental folks out there like me that still have these old Game Boy games, and the memory is miraculously still intact, I'm going to show you a little trick for buying your game another 10 years of life. I've already done this trick on this game, and to prove it, I'm going to show you, see, I have a saved game. And what we're going to do is swap the battery out. We're going to pull a George Costanza, which, if you're old enough to remember Pokemon, you're old enough to remember that episode where he buys the classic, I think it was Frogger, from the restaurant, and he wanted to take it home without erasing his high score, so we had to get it from the restaurant to his apartment without losing power at all. So that's exactly what we're going to do with this on a much smaller scale. And this is what we're going to need to complete this. These little CR2025 batteries, get ones that have the little insulation tape and the battery terminals welded on already. You're actually going to need 2. One will go over the battery, and keep power to it while we remove the original one and put a new one in, and then we'll take this one out. That way it never loses voltage. You're also going to use one of these little 6-pointed splined tools. I don't know where I got this one. I'm sure they're all over eBay. But these Nintendo screws are proprietary, so you'll need one to get the case open. And then we're going to solder on 2 pieces of wire to the reserve battery to keep voltage on it while we're working. Just going to go ahead and make my little jumper wires and solder them onto my reserve battery. You want to use thin wire for this because you're going to be soldering directly onto the game circuit board, and you don't want to have to hold your soldering iron on there a long time. Now let's open up the game case and get to work. If I can ever figure out what the name is for this tool, I'll post the name of it right here. Once the screw's out, you just flip it over, slide the top cover off, and up she comes. Now yours is not going to look like this. Again, I've already done this, so your battery's going to look a little bit different. Now, if at any point during this procedure the circuit loses voltage for even a second, everything's going to get erased. Not a big deal if you've already lost your game, but if you still have it, I would add a little bit of extra solder to both terminals. That way you have a little bit of slop in it. That way if you slip or something while you're taking the old battery out, you'll still maintain the connection with your reserve battery and your battery will be safe. It's a little bit high-risk surgery, again, only if you still have your data. When you go and solder it on, take note, there's a little negative sign there and a positive sign there to help guide you. Now that our reserve battery is soldered in parallel, we move on to the hard part. Hold the wire in place while you unsolder the battery from the circuit board. That way it doesn't slip out from under you. Once the battery's off, I'm just going to resolder this on there. Almost lost it for a second. All right, both wires are still on. Now let's put the new one in. If you'll note, the terminals on the new battery are much too long, so we're going to get some snips and cut them shorter. All right, I cut and rebent the terminals to size, retinned them with solder, and we're going to swap it in. Please, please, please note the polarity. New battery is in. While I was soldering in the new terminals, I was able to slip the leads of the, I guess I'll call it the life support battery, out in one motion. Now we're going to put it back in the case, fire it up, and make sure our Pokemon are still there. I apologize for all the ticking sounds while I'm soldering. Long ago, I decided I was not to be trusted with turning off my soldering iron, so I put a timer in there. All right, well, the surgery, I think, was a success. We're going to keep this battery because we can reuse it for more transplants. Let's plug it in and make sure that we still have our game. I showed this game to a 15-year-old, and that Gen Z punk tried to tell me that my Game Boy Color was old and vintage. I had to kick him straight in the Tide Pods. Success! On to the next patient. Thanks for watching.